exactly 6:30. I keep changing the clock on this laptop and it keeps running fast.
Well, I'm now at 6:30, so it being on or about 6:30, I bring the meeting of the Easton Conservation Commission on August 7th, 2023 to order. This meeting is being conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by board and commission members will be remote. Remote attendance shall count towards a quorum. The meeting will be broadcast live and will be recorded on ECAT. Let's begin with a roll call vote to establish quorum.
Benson present.
Carol present.
Crossman present.
Caulfield's present.
Spady present.
All right, seeing how we've established a quorum, let's move on to our first order of business, 8R Pequannocket, Dan O'Brien, applicant, notice of intent for the removal of decayed trees at 8R Pequannocket Ave. Hi, Daniel.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
I'm good. Would you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your proposal?
Sure, yeah. So I've written a little something. It'll take me like a minute to read, but I've never
Please.
been to one of these, so I don't know if that's the status quo or not, but sure. So I'm Dan O'Brien. My wife and I live at 8R Pequannocket Ave, and I'm here to talk to you about a safety issue at our property. So we have 6 large trees that have unfortunately have been decaying beyond the point of saving. The state has been confirmed by 2 independent arborists, one from Walnut Tree and another from Arbor Care. The trees present an imminent risk to our family and friends in our home. We've also sought further advice from a former conservation board member, Bill Humphrey, and the town building inspector, Paul DeBaggis. They visited our home, confirmed the arborist's assessment, and agreed on the need for full removal of the trees down to the stumps using a method that does not disturb the ground. Their professional opinion is documented in a letter of support, which we have submitted. We propose to remove the trees to the stumps and then plant new native species in suitable areas within our yard to continue supporting the local ecosystem. And our main objective is to ensure the safety while maintaining the beauty of our property and the ecosystem. And we believe our proposal aligns with that goal.
Very good. The pest, is it emerald ash borers? Did I make that up?
That's what Jennifer saw when she got there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. It's certainly not our first time seeing something like this.
Yeah.
Jen, comments?
No, just that it is emerald ash borer. They are willing to replant, so you may want to sort of come up with what kind of shrub or tree that you're looking for, and we can certainly work together on that. But we don't have a file number from DEP. There's a little bit of information they requested from Dan. So we can't actually close the public hearing until we get the file number from DEP.
So Dan, what that means is we can't give you your permit tonight. We can't close the hearing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have. I mean, any members of the commission have comments about this project?
There's nothing to talk about the plantings, but it's about it really.
Yeah. So honestly, I really appreciate your approach, and we've seen these before. The trees have to go, and we're hoping to work with you through a planting plan back there. And all we need is a DEP file number at this point.
Okay. Yeah, and I've been working with Jennifer, and I think we've been again we replied to I think it was the state, but we've been sending emails as soon as they come in. We're doing our best to follow all the guidelines here. So yeah, again, just as we're learning the things and as people are approaching us, and we've been trying to check every box. So I mean, we sent the check out to them. Yeah, we sent the check out, so it will be cleared, and we're waiting for that. And then I think that's the last step of this.
Yep, and we see that all the time. The DEP sometimes takes a moment to get back to folks. Is there any public comment relative to this project? Dan, that's not directed to you. It's just if anyone in attendance has comments about this.
Yeah, I mailed a bunch of people, so.
Yeah.
I don't see any.
All right, so seeing none, Dan, we're gonna do a motion to continue this. The next meeting is August 21st. Is that correct, Jennifer?
Yes.
All right, so I'm gonna do a motion to continue the notice of intent for 8R Pequannocket to the August 21st meeting of the Conservation Commission.
Second.
So Carol with the motion, Benson second, roll call vote.
Benson, aye.
Carol, aye.
Crossman, aye.
Caulfield's aye.
Spady, aye.
Very good. Thank you, Dan. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
All right, see you there. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Next up is Continued hearing and possible deliberations, 718 Washington Street. PMP Consulting applicant, PMP Consulting representatives, abbreviated notice of resource area delineation for the purpose of identifying wetland resource areas at 718 Washington Street.
And I think that's Edward, but I'm not sure. So if you could raise your hand if you're speaking for this. Edward, okay, good. Just a moment. Thank you. And Brad Holmes, okay.
Hello, members of the board and Jennifer. Brad Holmes should be on as well. Oh, there he
Looks
is.
like he's joining now.
Yep. Okay, perfect. All right. Good
So-
evening, members of the board. My name is Ed Jacobs, PMP Consulting, Inc., and I'm representing Clever Fajo of Alpha Group, owner of 718 Washington Street. It's on the east side of Washington Street. The property is just shy of 3 acres. Could I share my screen, put a plan up?
Please.
Hold on one second. Technical difficulties. Can everybody see that?
We can see, it looks like a open file, but I don't see the plans yet. It looks like if you click on the plans, it might bring us through.
Might have shared a wrong screen.
Yeah, it says I'm sharing. Hold on, let me stop. Try it again.
There we go.
We can see it.
Oh, good. Okay. That part's always nerve-wracking for me.
Well, you made it.
Okay, so this is the site. It's on the east side of Washington Street. It's just shy of 3 acres. It's currently home to Alpha Group's contracting business. Clever Fajo, who I believe is on tonight, lives in this house out front, and he runs his office out here out back where I'm circling this accessory building. This area of the property is paved, little parking lot up here, and a driveway to the back and additional parking back here. There's also an area back here that's a gravel area. It's currently being used for vehicle parking, equipment parking, and material storage. There are 3 or 4 storage containers out here and a corral off to the back of it, which Clever keeps a horse out there. And the front of the property from the back of this building forward is just basically lawn, a few trees on the property line, and this paved area. And that gravel area between the office and the corral, and then the rest of this, it gets pretty thick. When the tree line is right about where that 50-foot no touch is. The property slopes from the street down to the wetlands about 12 feet. It's pretty gentle slope all the way back. And as I mentioned, we have Brad from ERC here, and he flagged the property, he flagged the wetlands delineation in May, and our firm located them with Total Station. And I think I'll let Brad take over from here and explain the wetland resource areas.
Sure, thanks, Ed. Good evening, members of the commission. Brad Holmes with ECR. Ed, is it possible to zoom in on the wetland line a little bit?
Sure.
Thanks. to the north of the site and mainly off property is an intermittent stream. We've delineated the bank of the stream. That's, as you can see, the the B series flagging in green. There isn't an upgraded BVW to that, but it is a bank of an intermittent stream, and with that comes the 100-foot buffer and also the riverfront scenario under the Town of Easton wetland regulations. As you move further to the east, there's a bordering vegetative wetland that merges into the intermittent stream. We delineated the landward limit of that with an A-series wetland line. And with that comes the 50 and the 100-foot buffer zones. There was some old markings of some past conservation posts out and around the near the wetland or in that inner buffer zone. So there may be an old plan of record on this site. But other than that, the resource areas being the intermittent stream with the inland bank and the BVW were delineated. The other resource area that comes into play is bordering land subject to flooding, the FEMA A zone, which is depicted from the FEMA map. It doesn't have an elevation, but it's the A zone it's associated with the intermittent stream system. So with that, I'll turn it back to the commission as far as discussion of resource areas.
Jennifer?
Thanks. I didn't have any issue with the wetland boundary or the bank or the intermittent stream. We did get a call from a resident, and this is included in my revised staff report, that there was a claim there was a vernal pool that had been filled during the site inspection. I didn't really see any evidence of that, so I looked on the aerial photographs, and it does look like there has been some alteration of the floodplain and the buffer zone in the last few years without permits. So that is a violation that we need to discuss. But the flags themselves and the delineation of the wetland resource areas appear to be accurate to me.
So I think the problem here is if there's an existing violation here, it's difficult to move forward with an ANRAD. Have either of you had an opportunity to take a look at the staff report on this?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Comments?
I got a chance to see the staff report. I didn't get to see the enforcement letter that was sent. Not that
Didn't
I
send one
needed
yet.
to. Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Not that I needed to, because we were going to have the discussion now or tonight. So, as I hear Jennifer's in agreement with the delineations, that's great. That's the intent of the NRAD. Obviously, we need to address the unpermitted work, and hopefully we can do that through an enforcement order. So in my opinion, I think it would be good to keep them separate, because we wouldn't be able to do any work under an ORAD anyway, or an ANRAD. So however the commission is comfortable, obviously we have to respond to the commission and come up with a restoration plan through an enforcement order. Whether you as the commission issue an ORAD before or after that, that's up to you, but I think it's separate. So we're going to respond accordingly.
Members of the commission, I appreciate any input on this.
Well, I appreciate the response. I think that's what we want to hear, and that's definitely working with us. So I'm pretty happy with that. Ben, I was kind of curious what you were thinking as well.
Rory, did you have something to add?
I think that I think as much as we want to link these two, I think there's an ANRAD on the table, and
yeah,
and we if that's sufficient to issue the ORAD, then we probably should proceed. But I would also aggressively proceed with an enforcement order.
Okay. All right. Any members of the public have comments about what's being proposed tonight?
Don't see any.
All right, seeing none, it sounds like the course of action that we're gonna proceed with here is I'll do, and this is not the motion yet, but I'll do a motion to issue the ORAD, and we'll proceed with an enforcement order. And it sounds like we will be seeing you guys over the next few meetings to address the situation, and I assume for some project back here. All right, so that being said, I'll do a motion to issue an ORAD relative to 718 Washington Street.
Spady, second.
Roll call vote.
The procedural vote, I think we need to close the hearing first.
Oh, thank you, Rory. Let me do a motion to close the public hearing relative to 718 Washington Street.
Benson, second.
So Carol with the motion, Benson second. Roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Paul Phil's aye.
Spady, aye.
All right. Motion to issue a ORAD at 718 Washington Street.
Crossman, second.
Carol with the motion, Crossman second. Roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Paul Phil's aye.
Spady, aye.
All right, very good.
One quick question, Brad, do you have a rough timeline that I can put in the enforcement order? Normally we say within a month.
I mean, we have the plan done, all the work's done, the resource areas are locked down now. I think the next step is for me to coordinate with Ed on the limited disturbance, maybe do a little historic aerial, and then draft a plan and get it to the commission. So I mean, I could do that in 2 weeks. A month would be nice, but if it had to be 2 weeks, we could get it done in 2 weeks.
Any preference from anyone? We typically say a month.
Month's good.
Okay,
Yeah.
Month is good.
Yep.
thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Calling our next order of business, 102
Appreciate that.
Eastman Street. Sorry, what was that?
Just
I
thank you.
appreciate your time.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you.
Good night.
Next order of business is 102 Eastman Street. Notice of intent for improvements to a liquefied natural gas storage facility.
They've requested a continuance to 8/21.
All right, I will do a motion to continue 102 Eastman Street to the 8/21 meeting of the Conservation Commission.
Benson, second.
Carol with the motion, Benson second. Roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Paul Phil's aye.
Spady, aye.
Moving on to request for amendment, 38 Randall Street, Caitlin Roach, applicant Strong Point Engineering. Request for an amended order of conditions for 38 Randall Street, Northeastern Mass.
Hello, everyone.
Hey,
Sorry about that. It took me a minute. They booted me out for a second when I got promoted and it took me a minute to come back live.
well, there was no delay on our end.
Oh, good. Jen, I don't know if you can see, but either Caitlin Roach or Morgan McCafferty should be in the audience tonight, I believe.
You want me to promote them?
Please.
Okay.
Just give them a second to come up and then we can get. Excellent. So, Mr. Chairman, if it's good with you, I'll begin.
Please.
Excellent. For the record, Eric Dias, registered professional engineer with Strong Point Engineering Solutions, here tonight on behalf of the homeowners at 38 Randall Street, Morgan McCafferty and Caitlin Roach. You folks have seen this project twice now. This was part of an A&R subdivision that happened from a much bigger parcel that used to be known as 42 Randall. It stretched, spanned Randall to Summer Street. And as you know, we've had, varying degrees of appearances before the commission on the project as a whole, all the various parts of it. This particular lot has been before you for a notice of intent and for a revision to that notice of intent already. And I'm going to bring up the plan just to walk through things. Let's see if this works. That's not working. All right. There's got to be a better way here. What's happening?
We can see your Finder folder, but not the plans.
All right, let's try this. How's that?
Looks like something's loading. We're in.
All right, cool. So when we had originally permitted this, it was owned by the developer at the time. And what it is the dashed black line that you see where my cursor is going now is the limit of work that was initially permitted. So for resource areas on this site, we've got the A-series wetland that's over here. Interior to that A-series wetland, we've got a type 3 intermittent stream. As you obviously know, it's got the 200-foot riverfront buffer on it under the local bylaw. And that riverfront buffer encapsulates the entirety of the site and riverfront area, not buffer, encapsulates the entirety of the site, and that's delineated by this brown line that you see here. There is also, as we scroll down, there is the outer limits of a 100-foot vernal pool buffer on the site. That 100-foot buffer is the 100-foot buffer to the bylaw limit of the vernal pool, which, as you know, is 100 feet off of the delineated limit of the vernal pool. So in a sense, it's almost a 200-foot buffer. Now, when we originally designed this site, it was designed with this to keep all the disturbances within that thick, dark black line to be underneath the 10% threshold for the riverfront area disturbances. Fast forward to today, my client has moved into the house. This their first time building a new home, so they're kind of getting in the groove of things and learning what all of this means. And they get into the house and they are finding that that limit of work just doesn't really give them a lot of opportunity for their kids to go outside and play anywhere safe. They have 2 very young children. They have a few dogs that aren't able to really run anywhere. So they contacted me and said, what can we do here? So what we thought made sense was to propose to expand the backyard to what you see through here is the dashed limits in red, okay? Now, the reason we picked this particular shape is because if you recall, this lot has a conservation restriction on it to the tune of, I think it's 4.4 acres thereabouts. And this line we chose to be 5 feet thereabout off of the edge of the conservation restriction. The conservation restriction approximates the 50-foot buffer zone, which is no touch anyway. So in order for us to do this expansion, I had mentioned earlier that it was originally designed to be just under the 10% threshold, which it was actually 9.9. If we propose to expand the yard to the area that we have shown now, it becomes a 15% disturbance on the lot. So we need a waiver from the local bylaw to allow them to go to 15%. The other waiver that we will need is for work within this outer portion of the 100-foot vernal pool buffer. And you can see by the note here, we're still 72 feet off of the local vernal pool boundary. So that puts us only about 28 feet into it. So it's very modest. The other thing that I should mention is these folks are not proposing to get out there and clear cut this lawn. There are a lot of kind of big growth, old growth trees in this area. They want to go out there and selectively decide what needs to be taken. They talked about bringing in an arborist to see what's safe and what's not to remain, and then work around those trees. Really, we're going to save everything that we can. We're going to make this a usable space for their kids and their pets, and a safe space for their kids and their pets. And I think that is about it. The other thing that I will say is we on waivers, and you folks know this, we always get caught in the public benefit. So no secret, and there's never a great answer to it on a single family. But in this case, our argument is that the public benefit is just about pre-mitigated given the existence of that conservation restriction. That conservation restriction is substantial. It's a very good portion of the lot. I think this lot is 5.3 acres, if I remember right. That conservation restriction is about 4.4. It ties to a conservation restriction on 91 Summer Street, which is, I think the total is about 15 acres, and connects across Summer Street to some town-owned conservation land. So that's our thinking in this case. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it over to you and answer any questions that you guys have.
Great. Thank you. Jennifer, staff comment on this? I just did the same thing.
Yeah. While I agree that the conservation restriction would serve that public benefit interest in the waivers, it has not been recorded yet. And the original permit required it to be recorded before the building was occupied. It's already been occupied. The final version of that conservation restriction was just submitted last week, and we took another look at it to make sure it's ready. The one adjacent to it at 91 Summer has not been finalized or recorded yet either. So, I would suggest that both of those be recorded prior to clearing for the lawn.
Eric, out of curiosity, what is the occupancy situation?
So they are living in the house now. I think between the turnover between the original developer and the current homeowner, it got lost in the mail somewhere.
Yeah.
I have spoken with the current owners. They have reviewed the document. They're familiar with the document, and they are ready to sign and record at your direction. As Jennifer said, we had sent a revised copy of it over to her office last week. And as soon as you guys tell us how and when to sign, we will do it. And for that matter, just to speak to the lot on the other side that is still, I believe, under the control of the developer in that case. I've spoken with him as well, and he's ready to do the same. So we have no issue with a condition to get those over to you and get them on record prior to doing any of the work.
And can you give us an idea of how many trees we're talking about removing in here?
I'm shooting from the hip. I didn't count. If I go out there, and I was out there with Jennifer, so she can certainly correct me if I'm wrong, there were probably a dozen trees of substantial size in this area. I would think that we'd probably be saving at least half of them, just based on what I've discussed with the homeowner. I know when we discussed this initially, it was not their intention to necessarily clear cut, but they do want to get rid of anything that would pose, it's not healthy and would pose either a threat to falling on the house or falling on a child or a pet.
That makes sense. So I think the way that I see this is this property's third time in front of us, essentially expanding a footprint. That said, it is this applicant's, they're sort of the end user. I think they expect to be here for a while. I don't expect that if we were to approve this, we're going to see them back in 6 months asking for more yard space here. I think what we're talking about, taken in light of a 4.2 acre conservation restriction, it's going to be recorded. I'm okay with this, and I would very much like to hear what other members of the commission have to say.
Ben, I'm okay with it. I'd like to just add in more just for option, maybe for us for discussion is making maybe the 6 or whatever trees end up cutting down, maybe some of them being like a snag, cutting them at 10 feet, whatever, and leave them there for wildlife. But I get it's a backyard, but just some kind of give and take there. It's a lot of trees, especially if they're large growth trees. That's kind of unfortunate.
Seems like a reasonable request.
I think it sounds reasonable, but I'd like Jennifer to be there to find out which trees are going to stay and which ones aren't, so that we can get a better idea of that before it's signed off from the commission. Also, there's no trees marked on your plot plan. Could we kind of see where they're going to, the ones that are going to be retained in some form. And the ones that are going to be left can be shown on the revised plot plan.
Sure, through the chair, we can certainly do that. That's not a problem.
Just a couple of comments from me, if I can.
Please.
One is, if you're leaving large trees in this relatively small area of the backyard, he's going to have a very difficult time. They are going to have a very difficult time growing grass, just from the shade. I mean, they'll have a backyard, but it won't be lawn. I mean, they'll plant lawn, but it'll last a year or two before it really isn't getting enough sun to sustain. And if there's any activity on it, dogs or kids, they'll wear it out. So I'm just saying, we may be doing ourselves a disservice by requiring 6 trees as opposed to 3 if what the applicant really wants is some sort of recreational area for their children and pets. And that just may be something. I'm just raising a practicality issue here as somebody who's got 25 trees in his backyard.
Yeah.
And what that means. So
I've also struggled to grow grass in my backyard, Rory. I think that's a valid point.
As do I.
Eric, what are your thoughts there?
I would have no issue visiting the site either with Jennifer or any member of the commission and kind of taking marking out the boundary of the yard that we're going to clear, taking a look at the trees within there, in making kind of a game time decision at that time of what stays and what goes. If the commission's amenable to something like that.
I think that makes sense. Jennifer?
So I wasn't sure where the commission was going on this project, so I don't have a draft amended order yet, which means we'd really be looking at continuing for 2 weeks so we can draft that and you guys can take a look at it. Eric, is that something you might be able to look at in the next 2 weeks?
Full disclosure, I'm actually in Waterville Valley, New Hampshire right now. But I will be back next week on Monday, and I don't see a reason I can't run out there next week and put something together. And Jennifer, if you're available, I can drop you a line first and maybe we can meet.
Sure. Sounds good.
All right, perfect. Any other comments from the commission? Any comments from the public regarding this application?
You do have one hand raised.
We'll take it.
Yeah. Do you want me to do that or do you?
Yeah.
Never mind. I'll do it. There we go.
Mr. Keenan, can you hear us? Can you hear us? You can see that his microphone is no longer muted. So we should be able to hear him, but if you can hear us, we cannot hear you right now.
You can always type your comment in the chat.
There are actually comments in the chat.
Oh.
Oh, the Q&A.
Would you like me to read them?
Yes, please.
6:58 p.m. We as abutters do not agree with expansion of land for our aesthetics. 6:59. The owners knew what they were buying.
Okay. Mr. King, do you have anything else you'd like to add? All right. Mr. Keenan has put his hand up again.
And Mr. Keenan, you have permission to speak and turn on your video. You just have to set your settings correctly so that there you go.
Video's on.
You just want to check your audio device to see what it's using for a microphone. Yeah, we can hear you now. No. It did for a second.
Yeah. Yeah, on our end, it looks like you have a microphone connected, but we cannot hear you.
Just as while he works on that, Mr. Chairman, could you please could I please just request, what was the square footage that was being asked to be altered here? 7,500 square feet or so?
Let me just pull the plan back up real quick so I can see.
I think it was like 7491 or something.
Yes, the proposed additional lawn area is 7,640 square feet.
So I'm a little unsure as to what to do here regarding public comment. I'd like to hear what Matt Keenan has to say.
I can type it in the chat.
Yeah. If you have more you'd like to add, you can add it. You can type it into the chat. I'll also say, we were talking about continuing this for 2 weeks. And we'd be happy to work with you at the office to figure out how we can get you set up to speak at the next meeting.
There's not that much I can do on their end of the computer, but they can certainly propose a letter or send me an email, and that we can make sure the commission gets and can read at the next meeting if they're still having an issue with their audio. But I would send that in, soon, not the day of the meeting would be really helpful, at least a week ahead of time.
I'm hoping that they can hear us right now. We can see you. If you can hear us, would you mind nodding? Okay. All right. So I think the best that we're going to be able to do tonight is to let you know that I'm about to do a motion to continue this. And we're happy to communicate between now and the next meeting. And there are detailed instructions so that we can help you. We can't implement technology at your house, but we can help you figure out how to get set up. All right. So that said, I am going to do a motion to continue 38 Randall Street to the August 21st meeting of the Conservation Commission.
Benson, second.
All right. Carol with the motion, Benson with the second. Roll call vote.
Benson, aye.
Carol, aye.
Grossman, aye.
Caulfield's aye.
Beatty, aye.
Very good. Thank you.
Everyone. Appreciate it.
So turning to the next order of business, 66 Highland Street, request for a certificate of compliance for septic repair.
So this is a Collins project. I don't see anyone from Collins on here. At the last meeting, we had sent a letter to the new homeowner, basically saying, hey, there's an issue here. We can't do a certificate of compliance if there's still compost in the wetland. And I did not receive a reply from them.
All right, so I suppose this is probably continue another 2 weeks.
We could try that, yes. And I can send another letter, maybe stop over and see if anyone's home.
Yeah. Comments from anyone here? All right, I'll do a motion to continue the 66 Highland Street certificate of compliance to the August 21st meeting of the Conservation Commission.
Beatty, second.
Carol with the motion, Spady a second. Roll call vote.
Benson, aye.
Carol, aye.
Grossman, aye.
Caulfield's aye.
Spady, aye.
All right. Request for certificate of compliance, 226 Massapog Ave.
This is ready for a full certificate of compliance.
Any discussion?
So Jennifer, just because this one went through a lot of initial hearings and conditions and whatnot. Is the existing homeowner clear on what their limit of lawn clearing and everything is? Do we?
There is a post and rail fence with the markers on it, and the conservation restriction has been recorded.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All right. Motion to issue a certificate of compliance relative to 226 Massapog Ave.
Caulfield second.
Carol with the motion, Caulfield second, roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, aye.
Crossman, aye.
Caulfield's aye.
Spady, aye.
All right, very good. Now 560 Foundry Street, partial order of conditions. You guys hear us?
We can.
Yes, we can.
We can see both of you. Would you mind introducing what you're looking for?
Sure. Good evening. This is Mike Toohill from Conoco Engineers and Scientists. Lori McDonald is with me as well. And we're seeking a partial certificate of compliance for the sawmill project, the Foundry Street project that Rick Lincoln is working on. He's got 4 homes that he's trying to get building permits for. The order of conditions had several conditions that had to be satisfied prior to issuance of the building permits, prior to getting a partial certificate for the building permits. One of which was to complete the stream daylighting replication area, which has been done. That's been fairly successful. So we continue to monitor that, though, obviously. Second is to complete the floodplain compensatory storage area. And that is actually going to be completed tomorrow. We've had some weather issues, a lot of water over in that area. So they're finishing the grading on that tomorrow. But that floodplain compensatory storage area is compensatory storage for the bridge area. The 4 houses that Rick is trying to get building permits on are on the far eastern side of the site. They're not, have nothing to do with the floodplain itself. So the compensatory storage area is getting worked on. And Lori, there were a couple other items.
Yes, so we submitted the cover board survey. We completed the survey in May and June of this year, and we found some common species, mainly eastern toad and bullfrog, green frog. No targeted species were identified within the cover board survey area. We had to complete the survey in 2 separate phases. The first phase was the larger portion west of Beaver Brook. That was completed in May. And then the second phase was closer towards the western side of Beaver Brook, and that had to be completed in 2 phases because of the rain on site. This year was just much more than on your typical years. So the west side had a lot of water on it. We wanted to wait till the water cleared closer to Beaver Brook before we installed the silt fence in that area. So
we
waited
completed
until
the
June.
reconstruction wildlife surveys that were required as part of the partial certificate. And actually, maybe Jen, we had a site visit, you and Megan Dutra, the engineer, and I. So maybe, Mr. Chairman, if Jen wants to weigh in now, we can continue the discussion.
Certainly.
There were just a couple of other items. So the conditions required before work starting, the draft deed and the plans for the land donation. So you guys were going to confirm that we had that. The floodplain, not just the floodplain compensation for the bridge, but the floodplain, the new floodplain on that east side of the property is also required to be final grade, temporarily stabilized with an as-built plan.
Yeah, that's the one they're working on. When we saw it, we were out there that day, it was still full of water, part of it, and they pumped it out and they're actually doing the final grading and we'll stabilize it.
Okay. And the floodplain, I mean, the vernal pool report. I don't know if that was sent.
We sent you the cover board survey. We haven't done the vernal pool report yet because we still have a couple more years of study to do. So we had submitted partial discussions of what we found in the monthly construction reports. There is a discussion about the May findings. I don't know if that's
okay. So, but if we wait until the very end to get the vernal pool report, we don't know if we need to make adjustments in between. So I think I was expecting, you know, the first year report to have been submitted. I'd have to see how we worded that in the order of conditions, but if you know which monitoring report it was in,
would be the June report, June monitoring report. We disclosed our findings.
Okay. And so the floodplain area should be completed tomorrow and then temporarily stabilized in the as-built plan. Will that be done within 2 weeks, do you think?
Yeah, Tim will be out there shooting it as soon as they finish grade it. And they have to cut that berm down that we were talking about, you know, and open up the areas where the silt fence is right now in order to be able to have the floodplain communicate with the brook.
Okay. And then we talked about the surety agreement and the surety amount, but I haven't seen the estimate come in yet or any
So
comment.
we're going to ask that we not have to have a surety bond. The order of conditions says the commission may require a surety bond. There are so many conditions, so many things that Rick has to comply with out there. And he's asked me to tell you that surety bonds, first of all, are hard to get. They're very expensive. And we don't see, you know, given the extent of public land that's being donated and the other work that's being done on behalf of the public here, that a surety bond is required. It's
not a bond, it's cash. It's you don't go to a bonding company for that. It's typically cash.
Okay, we're going to ask that the commission waive any surety. It's a condition you may require. You don't have to. It was not required in the order. You may require it.
Be my recommendation to do that.
It'd be your recommendation to condition surety.
Require the surety.
What is the, could you give me for the commission a reminder of what is the extent of the surety we're talking about?
Sure. So this is the list that I provided you guys with.
Yep.
Already. So it's including but not limited to the monitoring of the stream daylighting, right? So you've already done the construction and the planting and everything. It's just the monitoring of stream daylighting, restoration area B, riverfront area, the new floodplain grading, stabilization, and as-built plan. If you finish that before, then you wouldn't need to have a surety for that. The floodplain signage and installation, final construction and stabilization of stormwater features, installation of the visual barriers, the post and roll fencing, buffer zone markers where required, final site stabilization within jurisdictional areas, the as-built plans, follow-up vernal pool monitoring, final land donation deeds, installation of concrete monuments, inspection of property lines, and recording at the registry, submittal of the master deed, and recording at the order of condition, the certificate of compliance at the registry.
So we're talking about surety for each of those items.
Correct. Yep. It can be done in a line item so that as they're completed, it can be returned.
Okay.
Yep. That's not uncommon. Where activity before requesting building permits hasn't been completed, it is appropriate.
Okay. I think we have a couple of questions in front of us, right? The first is this partial certificate of compliance. So let's stick with that. Any discussion from members of the commission as this sets comments? Roy, please.
So do we have a list of what's been completed that was expected to be completed at this point? I know it's there, Jennifer. I'm just trying to vocalize it. And what hasn't been completed and what the timeline is to get it completed. So that's so the stuff we're talking about giving them a partial certificate of compliance. Then. The stuff that needed to be done before they started building is basically it.
Yeah.
So if we could just review that again for me and sort of check completed, not completed, will be completed tomorrow, as built by, next Friday or whatever the heck the number is. And then, like we mentioned the deed and the land donation thing, and we got zero response to that. And so I don't know if there's intention to have that done now, or they're asking for us to defer that and not include in this partial certificate of compliance.
The deed, is that for the conservation easements, restrictions and the like? I believe, Mike, we were waiting until the project is close to completion before deeding over the conservation
before it's
lands.
actually deeded.
Yeah.
So it says draft deed and the draft plans, and that is something that was in the order of conditions, and it's been there, the whole time. So we're looking for the drafts to be done.
So we're not looking for them to be executed now. We're just looking for the initial draft of the
draft language, the draft plans, so we can see the the bearings and the distances and the lot shapes. And
so I thought we had submitted the plans back during the original NOI filing. Didn't we submit, Mike, the plans showing where the deeded areas?
It's an overall plan with the lots colored, but there are no distances, there's no bearings, there's nothing describing how the lots are going to look. Yeah. It seems like you already have that information. It's just a matter of submitting that with the draft deed. So Roy, to answer your question, prior to start of work, it was the wildlife surveys, which we received last week. The draft deed and the plans for the donation, that was condition number 86. Prior to site development of any individual lot, all stream daylighting, river restoration area, wetland replication area B, which has all been done and just needs to be monitored, and floodplain compensation area shall be at final grade and temporarily stabilized with as-built plans and a surety. And that's condition 28. So the floodplain is an important wetland resource area that does need to be addressed, but it sounds like they'll be able to do that within the next 2 weeks. Then prior to occupancy, there are another set of conditions. And then prior to site development of units 1 through 4, there's a set of conditions. And then we have something separate for prior to certificate of compliance for the whole property.
So I think I'm a little slow tonight.
Just a few other items to submit for a partial certificate with the surety.
And the surety is for everything that we just listed.
Correct.
If that's done, why do we need a surety? Because it hasn't stabilized?
Some things have not stabilized. Some have not been constructed. It's whatever's left to be done on that permit is what you're putting surety for. Yep, and that's all listed in the draft surety agreement.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, please.
Is there another milestone before the final certificate of compliance?
I believe yes. Jennifer, do you know the answer to Rory's question?
I mean, it's the partial certificate, and it's the start signing building permits. This is the surety is something you've discussed at previous projects and previous meetings, saying we really need to start utilizing that portion of your regulations and make sure that they're being completed in a timely fashion, and people aren't moving in and then finding out that, oh, the conservation restriction hasn't been done yet.
Yeah.
Portions of the permit haven't been done yet, and they were supposed to have done before occupancy. So we put everything in the order of conditions and in sort of the most reasonable, logical time frame that we could, to make sure that the project is meeting certain milestones and that things were being done before buildings were being either constructed or occupied.
Which is 2 steps, right? Because we've got building permits which allow them to start, building those foundations and structures before the weather turns this year. And then occupancy is, down the road. So that's actually, there are 2 separate milestone steps there.
That's correct, but we don't sign off on occupancy permits. We sign off on building permits. And so that's why we sort of had it broken up into 2 portions, get a good amount done and have a surety when we do the building permit. And then when it's time for the occupancy permit, they should have smooth sailing.
Okay. Any additional comments from the board?
Just as a matter of discussion, I think certainly in recent times, we've been in favor of using sureties where needed. I think my only concern in this particular case is the magnitude of the surety. And if there was some way to bifurcate it, that was somewhat the nature of my original question was, where are we in the whole process, and where do we get to step in again to ensure that they're making progress? And it seems like we may not have that again, other than the surety. Now, there was a big project off of Washington Street or Turnpike that had a fairly large surety, and as they completed items off the surety list, they just came back and we released money from the surety back to the landowner. And I know it's not an easy thing, and it's not it's an added cost for the developer to have in the process. But at the same time, we have examples from this meeting of developers not doing things that are in the right order or in the order of conditions. So I'm in favor of the surety. I just would like to know the magnitude. If it was a $500,000, then I'd sit there and say, well, that's a little tough for me to swallow.
It is a good question. And instead of doing the entire project with both sides, my recommendation and what I wrote in the draft surety agreement was that we're only dealing with the east side of the property where they're trying to build first. It does not include the bridge or the west side of the property with the other 22 houses. And so if you have the surety for the Beaver Brook side, they can be ticking off all those other things that we need for environmental protection. And then once they start building the bridge, they want to start building the Mulberry Meadow Brook side, then that's a chance to say, oh, great, we can tick off some of the things from the Beaver Brook side, and now we may have to look at a surety on the west side of the property. But it was broken down on purpose so that it's only the one section that they're working on, not the entire project. And this is something that the planning board does a surety for these large projects all the time. They may not be doing one for this project, which is why we are looking at the environmental portions of it. This doesn't include any of the road construction because it's a private road. This is just the stormwater management. Anything that will impact the wetlands or the environment is what I have proposed. I left out all the other things that don't have to do with conservation.
Okay. Any other comments from members of the board?
I like the idea of splitting it up. Good job, Jen. Like it.
Al, did you have something to add? Saw you nodding your head.
I agree. I think Jen's taken a very practical position that sort of gives the developer the best financial way of minimizing the surety, but protects the commission.
Michael and Lori, do you have anything you'd like to add?
So I do have one question with regards to the surety. I don't understand why it is necessary, because the commission can always just deny a complete certificate of compliance at the end of the project. If there's something that hasn't been completed to the commission's satisfaction. I don't know why the additional money is required.
So if we're looking to do that, then we can say the condition that says certain items have to be done before the building permit, then we could end up having the commission issue an enforcement order and stop work right now until those items are done. That's not anything anybody's trying to do.
I think practically what we have seen happen frequently is that properties change hands and a different owner is trying to record an order of conditions or have us issue a certificate of compliance, and something's been done incorrectly, and now we're doing enforcement orders and chasing somebody, as opposed to on new projects we've had a lot of success with asking developers to post bonds to provide a financial incentive for them to complete the work as it's been permitted. So I guess that brings me to my next, procedural point here, which is this work sounds like it's about to imminently be done for the partial order of conditions. Is there a mechanism where we can vote on this tonight and issue it when the work's completed?
You could do that, but it might be more efficient if they review the draft surety and make whatever suggested changes they would like and track changes so we can see them, provide the detailed task list with estimated amounts. This way we can very easily see which things they have completed and are looking to be reimbursed. Finish the floodplain and have it grading and have that at least temporarily stabilized, and make sure we have the draft deed and the plans for the land donation, and the June monitoring report we'll take a look at for the vernal pool investigation. But it seems like all of that can certainly be done within the next 2 weeks. They've had a few weeks with the staff report a few weeks before that, asking for a meeting on site to go over the list. And we did the site walk last week. So they should be able to complete all of that within the next 2 weeks. Or you can certainly vote that now, but it would be contingent on receiving the information. So I don't know that you're saving any time there.
I think a 2-week continuance makes sense. Michael, Lori, do you agree?
Make a motion to continue to August 21st.
Carol, second. So Rory with the motion, Carol second, roll call vote.
Benson, aye.
Carol, aye.
Rossman, aye.
Paul Pills, aye.
Spade, aye.
Thank you, Mike and Lori. So, and, I'm certainly available if you want to go over, how to proceed and how we want to keep working back and forth on finalizing something so that the commission has that before the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, turn to our next order of business. Request for an extension 150 Foundry Street.
Yes, okay. James is here. I'm hoping you're speaking on behalf and not in a butter.
Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Perfect. How you guys doing? My name is James Lacasse. I'm here on behalf of Water and Wetland. Just to go over the extension request for Maplewood Country Day Camp Pond. We've sent you the extensions, pretty detailed, kind of outlines exactly what we've done. This project, we've taken over management for Solitude Lake Management back in 2021. We follow everything, we're compliant with all the order conditions. Pretty straightforward project here. And like I said, the extension request kind of outlines exactly what we do, as well as the year-end report that we send you guys. So more here to answer any questions. Like I said, this is an OOC that has never been extended before, so we're just asking for a 3-year extension to continue management.
And so just to be clear, this is for the aquatic plant management permit application only.
Yep.
Not for any other activity on the property. And that all of their reporting has come in on time. There's been no issues with them. So thank you.
Great. Of course. Comments from members of the commission?
I just ask a question. How the monitoring reports have been very successful up till now. Is that correct?
Yep. So we go there monthly. Everything's based off of survey data, sampling data, so forth. Usually only need 1 treatment per year, and that kind of takes a hold of mainly the nuisance pondweeds within the southern portion of the pond, just so the campers, they can take their boats out, their swan paddle boats, and so forth. And we've officially gotten the Phragmites down to almost a hand wiping level, which is great. So almost nearly eradicated in the northern shoreline of the pond.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else have a comment? Any comments from members of the public? Seeing none, let's do a motion. Is there somebody say something? Feedback issue on Zoom. Let's do a motion to extend the permit for 150 Foundry Street relative to the aquatic management program for 3 years from tonight's meeting.
Crossman second.
All right, so Carol with the motion, Crossman second, roll call vote.
Benson, aye.
Carol, aye.
Crossman, aye.
Paul Phil's aye.
Spady, aye.
And just so it's clear, it's an extension from the issuance date, not necessarily from tonight's meeting, but 3 years is good. Thank you.
Perfect.
My mistake, James.
No worries.
No worries. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. If you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to us.
Thank you. Turning next to enforcement. Let's begin with 81 Summer Street restoration plantings. Welcome back, Eric.
Hey guys. All right, for the record, Eric Dias, registered professional engineer, Strong Point Engineering Solutions, representing Garcon Corp. At the restoration at 81 Summer Street. I believe every current member of the commission was here when we went through this enforcement order a little while back. So we're all very familiar with the project. Just to kind of refresh everybody's memory, I will share the screen and bring up the restoration plan, if I can find it. So this is the area. You will recall there's a common drive. Summer Street is page south. There was a common drive that came up and extends into here. And obviously there was clearing that went too far. And we don't need to revisit the who's and whys of all of that stuff. But here we are. So an enforcement order was issued. These plants were put in the fall planting season 2022. And also I believe Jen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was a $35,000 surety cash bond was posted at the time to ensure, the success of this. So here's what I'm told. By the end of the growing season, fall 2022, these plants were lush and healthy, and this area was thriving. It was watered every other day, something like that, with the bucket brigade, and everything was going good. Fast forward to spring of this year, we had Brad Holmes at ECR come out and take a look at this. And we've got about a 50% mortality rate out there. A lot of it is due to deer damage. And certainly the applicant is adamant that these plants were watered throughout the duration of the fall planting season. And he believes this to be deer damage causing the problems. So he asked that we have this meeting tonight to talk about how to best move this forward and what options he may have. And I think that the best way to summarize it is to say that, you know, he is willing to get out there to replant anything that's died, to water adequately, to make sure that it's alive at the end of the appropriate growing season. But what he doesn't want to do is come back and chase deer forever. You know, in his opinion, at some point there should be kind of a cutoff that, I don't want to say absolves him of responsibility, because that's not the right way, but some sort of an ending point. So he doesn't have to chase these to the end of time. The other thing that he notes is that, look, you folks are holding a $35,000 bond, and he's willing to have a discussion related to that as well. So, you know, that's what I'm here to talk about, and I'm glad to kick it to the commission and hear anything you guys have to say.
Commissioner Spadia may be able to help you with your deer problem offline.
Jennifer, I'll give you my number.
I appreciate that. I think you'd have a good time from what I'm hearing out here.
49
Jennifer.
limit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just what do you think?
I think there are some options for deer fencing or some sort of deer deterrent. And that, you know, any restoration requires at least a 75% survival rate within 2 growing seasons. So he, you know, he hasn't provided that, so it hasn't technically been restored yet. So, you know, if he comes up with a solid plan for, okay, this is what we're going to replant, this is how it's going to be watered, and provide some documentation that shows that's what's being done, and this is how we can prevent deer, and this is what we're proposing, and this is some documentation that it was done within the 2 growing seasons, then you know, it would be more reasonable to say, okay, you've done everything you can to provide that 75% restoration rate.
Yeah, I mean, my thought is I don't want to live in restoration planting Groundhog's Day. I don't want to see someone back here every year and a half saying the deer ate my plants. You know, this was a pretty clear-cut violation, but I felt like the applicant was in here expeditiously to deal with it, and that it was a genuine mistake. I think what I'd like to see is another round of plantings with a plan on how they're going to get watered, how deer are going to be dealt with, and give it another growing season and see what sticks.
Okay.
And they're halfway there. I mean, 50% survived. So if you replant 100% of the 50% that died, you should get closer to 75 with all the measures you're going to put in too. If you think it's deer.
I will say, Eric, watering things with buckets sounds like a very expensive way to water things. Is there any other access to water back there?
That's one issue that we're having, and certainly not a Conservation Commission issue. I think it's an issue that we've created for ourselves. The lots have been conveyed. So, you know, there is a hydrant on site, and I don't know if we would be able to tap that hydrant to provide some sort of sprinkler system. It's certainly something that we can look into.
Yeah.
I know the previous season, he had hired some kids in the neighborhood to come out and, you know, literally with the bucket brigade, I had come out there with 5-gallon buckets, dousing every plant there. And, you know, from what I saw at the time, at least, it seemed to be working.
Yeah.
And by all reports, it was a good lush vegetation at the end of the season. And then, you know, whatever happened. But certainly I understand the commission's position. And like I said, my client is not averse to getting out there and replanting and making sure they're watered and stuff like that. But I think, like we kind of talked about and like Jen alluded to, he's just looking for an end date, something that doesn't require him to do this in perpetuity and just chase his tail.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I I can't speak for everybody, so I'd love some input, but I think a plan in place for watering, deer management, and one more round of plantings would satisfy me.
Absolutely. For sure. Oh, Rory, come on, I want to hear it.
We want to hear it, Rory.
Can't leave me hanging with that.
So how is 91 Summer Street doing?
91 is actually very good. It's coming in well. In fact, we did provide a report to Jennifer's office, I believe it was last week, and that's got the 75% required.
Yeah, so I am not willing to make the statement right now. Give it one more try, and I'm satisfied. So I will hold judgment based upon the results. So that's my position.
Okay.
Didn't think of that.
So Eric, is that something you're able to draft within the next 2 weeks, or you're away this week?
I'm away this week, and I'm going to have to coordinate Brad Holmes because I'm certainly going to need his assistance. I will be honest, as an engineer, I know embarrassingly little about plants, so I need to call someone who knows what they're talking about. So if we could do 30 days, that'd be great. Well, the meeting after next would be good, whenever that is.
September 11th.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, great. Well, thank you all very much for your consideration. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Question, Jennifer, I see down on the agenda is the ratification of 42 Randall. Do you need me to stick around for that one?
Nope, it's just because it was not on the agenda at the last meeting.
Mhm.
The only update I was going to give them was that you have finalized the surety agreement. The amount is $10,000, and I'm expecting them to come in tomorrow or Wednesday to finalize that.
Okay.
So I guess I just did.
All right, guys. Well, thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good night, guys.
Night. So turning next to enforcement 20 Central Street, enforcement order and potential to issue fines. Jen, could you give the commission a little background on this? Is nobody's here for that project, right?
No, no one in attendance. So you had issued an enforcement order previously with the clearing of some wetland vegetation, a number of trees along the canal, riverfront area, floodplain, bordering vegetated wetland, right along the bank. They came in with a restoration plan, which the commission accepted under that enforcement order. In the meantime, there was also an issue with DEP and an oil spill inside the foundation of the building they came in to get the permit for to remove. So they had been on hold with DEP, Department of Environmental Protection. And then 2 weeks later, they went in and clear cut pretty much the same area, and even more so. I do have a photo I should be able to share. Yeah, here it is. Just let me know if you can see that.
We can see it.
Okay, so it was, a few of the trees and some of the vegetation here, and now they've gone in and clear cut even more of those trees. So I contacted them twice and said, hey, what's going on there? And you're not supposed to be doing anything. And then, hey, I didn't hear back from you. It's been a week. I'm still waiting for a reply from you, and I have heard nothing from them. So this is one of those cases where I probably need to ask town council, do we consider this as part of the old enforcement order, or do you need to issue an additional enforcement order? I mean, it's the same violation, so I'm not sure if we benefit from doing a second one. And then I have a few questions for him about, that's the activity is clearing and removing vegetation, but do we count that as an activity in each resource area or just in one? Because your fines, potential for fines are each activity per day is up to $300. So just trying to figure out the logistics of how to issue that. From what I understand, the commission can just vote to issue fines if that's what you choose. Or I can get some additional information from town council to find out when does the clock actually start, what would that look like, and get that information back to you.
So this is one where I'm just very surprised by what's happened back here. After having a whole conversation about what to do to clear cut the amount that they've clear cutted and then not respond. I am personally in favor of issuing some fines and doing a vote tonight to issue fines, and in the hopes that that will attract them to come back to the next meeting and figure out what happened, why it happened, and how we're going to address it.
Agreed.
Can't agree more, Ben.
Anybody feel differently? I'm
No, I
open
totally
to
agree.
input. Roy, I apologize. I spoke over you. What was that?
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I think that it was pretty clear what the violation was previously, and to do something that's essentially the same but bigger is odd. So I think we need to send the message and get their attention and figure out what we can do on this site. I mean, I don't even, at this point, I'm not even quite sure.
Yeah.
And do you want me to just get the options from town council? Do you have a rough idea? We want to start from the original enforcement order. We want to start from the date that the second set of vegetation removal was done. Do you have any sense of that?
My instinct is to say, let's start fines from the day second vegetation removal was done. And probably not fine to the fullest extent of our ability to, in the hopes that they come back at the next meeting. And if we're able to, then we can address our fine amount more specifically.
Yes, you can cut that back if you want. You can say this is the full fine amount, but you're here, you come up with a plan, we can cut that back a little bit. I think you have those options, but I need to confirm that with town council.
Okay.
Would one option be to fine them something like $300 a week, which is 1/7 of the maximum that they could be fined, but that should get their attention. And if you can always increase it to the daily rate, but at least it may give them the point that the commission is serious about this and they better start thinking about actions.
So logistically, I can't really do that. I can only do, it's a fine of a certain amount per day per violation. So you kind of have to pick the amount and then we add it up.
So the discretion that I misread when that was kind of my thought, Al, was is that it's our ability to, we have the privilege to collect the fine, but it seems that the fine is set by the bylaw. So when we say issue fines, we issue fines to the full extent of the bylaw, and then we can reduce them.
So it's either 0 or 300?
Sounds like it.
No, it could be up to 300 per day per violation. You could say those. You could say we're only going to do 100 per violation.
100, yeah.
Yeah, $50 a day would come close to what I initially threw out as a possible option. $350 a week.
And
do we have
something I was thinking about is I wonder if we have to balance that out with, well, what was the cost of the tree clearing?
Yeah.
Right. If they spent $20,000 to clear the trees, they don't care if they have a $2,000 fine, but I'm not suggesting we, make a hard hit. I'm just saying, they might think,
Okay. I didn't realize it was that much of a cost to clear. I'd be willing to go higher.
So then I guess I'm still confused on what are our options for making a decision tonight to begin the process of a fine. So it sounds to me, unless someone else isn't, that we're all in favor of getting some type of fine moving directed towards the site.
Sounds like we could do maximum multiple $300 fines, correct? For multiple actions.
It sounds that way, but it also sounds like I don't want to propose something or suggest something that none of you are comfortable with. And maybe this is one of those times where we say, hey, town council, can you just come to the meeting?
Okay.
And we probably have to do executive session and ask them to sort of walk us through our options. Maybe that's the best way to handle this.
Can we still make that retroactive to the date of incurrence?
I believe so.
Okay, that might be a point we want to confirm.
Okay.
And do we know what that date is? Are we
I think
sure?
it was the 17th. So a couple of weeks ago.
So then I guess we'll continue this and get town council in the loop and probably have executive session relative to fines at the next meeting.
Yeah. Let me see who's available.
Rory, you're leaning in. Did you have a comment?
No, we covered everything.
Okay.
I think there's any questions I have can wait.
Fair.
Or you can send them to me individually and I can send them to council as well. This way we have the questions ahead of time and they can answer them ahead of time. You can do that too.
That works.
Yeah.
All right. So turning to minutes. Looks like we received minutes for the 7:10 meeting, 7:10 and the 7:10 executive session, and the 7:24 meeting. Anybody have an opportunity to review the minutes? Al, what do you have? Any comments?
Yes, on July 10, the 39 Vineyard concept, in the first full paragraph, there's a period and then a small s for stormwater. That should be capitalized, just a small point. And then the July 24th, Bay Road, the second was missing. I think it was Mike, but I'm guessing. And the 91 Union, there's two dates going forward. So we want to make them the same. And that's all I have. I thought they were extremely well written.
I don't think I read them with Al's level of detail, but I had no comments. Rory?
No, Al caught the one thing I had on the 24th.
Mike, Nate, any comments? All right. I should know this. Can I approve all 3 minutes in one vote?
I think you can say approved with the edits as listed in the meeting.
All right, so we'll look.
With the
the executive session might be separate.
All right.
Do the executive session.
Thank you, Rory.
Thank you, Rory. Thank you very much. So motion to approve the minutes with the edits suggested in the meeting for July 10th and July 24th meeting of the Conservation Commission.
Second.
Carol with the motion, Benson second, roll call vote.
Benson, aye.
Carol, aye.
Crossman, aye.
Caulfield's aye.
Spady, aye.
Motion to approve the 7/10/23 executive session minutes.
And hold or release.
Hadn't thought of that.
Hold, I think, and when we're
And hold them.
done with that issue, we can release them.
Yes.
And hold.
Second.
All right. Carol with the motion, Caulfield second, roll call vote.
Benson, aye.
Carol, aye.
Crossman, aye.
Caulfield's abstain.
Spady, aye.
All right. Our next order of business is associate members, but I would like to skip that for this meeting, unless anyone feels strongly about discussing associate members. Seeing no takers.
Have we reached out to the 3 associate members, or is there still some discussion about what we want to do about them in general?
I think that's the discussion is about what we want to do with them in general, and I haven't honestly had a chance to speak with them, so I'd like to talk to them and also speak with you, Rory, because I know you've had extensive communication and just see what their interest is and level moving forward, and then have a discussion as a group.
Would that be an executive session discussion?
No, just general discussion, board discussion.
Okay.
So I guess there's the update on associate members.
There you go.
Bylaw regulations, potential revision.
Yeah, we have Lauren. Or do you want, should we just do the quick updates and then after Lauren's finished, we'd be ending the meeting?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Can we do that real quick?
We'll spend
Alright.
some time to learn.
Yeah. Do you have any updates, Ben?
I have no updates.
Okay, then my quick one is that we have 2 grants for, or 3 grants for CPC for next Springtown meeting. One is for the purchase of the property next to Clifford Grant. The community garden has some funding they're requesting, and then our signage replacement project for conservation properties. And that is upcoming at the meeting on Thursday evening at 7 o'clock. And then there was a quick question about the sign design changes. You know, now we understand that the wayfinding, we're trying to keep the signs looking exactly the same. I did ask them, hey, could you put together one thing that has our logos on it too? But I assumed it might be too busy. And so I put that in your packet. It's the one picture of just the sign, and then the other one is with our other 2 logos.
I felt like it had a lot
For
going
your
on.
opinion, I think it's a little too busy that
Yeah.
way. And maybe we just do the standard new wayfinding sign, and then we just come up with a sign with all the rest of our information. That's just a flat metal sign that can go on the kiosk that has our logos. It might look better that way.
I like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
As much as I like our logo, that was a lot on a sign.
It was too much. I kind of knew that when I asked, but I thought, well, let's just see if they mock up something really quickly and make sure you guys are approving that. Okay, and that's all I have for me. So, how
Back
are
up to
you
bylaw.
feeling? Do you want to take a few minutes, or you want to dive right in and have Lauren? Oh, everybody's like, no, just go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
So I have to make Lauren a panelist. Oh, we do have one more member in the audience, though. I don't know if you have anything to add. Nothing else for us to add on that topic, so.
No, I don't think so. Hey, Lauren.
Hello. So I'm gonna be showing some simplified versions of the regs. I'll just jump right into it and share my screen for Article 1. All right, can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. Okay. I don't know why it's not letting me scroll. Oh, there we go. Okay. So here is 503-1. Here is A and B. I'm going to scroll down a little bit so you can see what was taken out. And if you guys want to read that, or if you have already read it, and if you have any comments on those sections, please let me know.
So I think that one of the things, and I'll be frank, I only had time to review section 1, just due to my own time limitations. I was, just as an overarching comment, it was astounding to me how we could say so much in so little words, but we chose to say them in so many words. So that is kudos to you for tackling this and literally saying what we needed to say in a very straightforward, clear manner. And I think as an overarching goal, that was absolutely what we wanted to accomplish here, right? I mean, there's some other tweaks to the regs that we wanted to do, but our overarching goal was to streamline these, simplify them, make them readable, make them understandable. And so, at least in section 1, you accomplished that. I have some questions about a couple things, but I think is an overarching comment. I do appreciate the effort, and if the other 2 sections are like this, I'm so happy we did this. Is basically my conclusion on this. So, that's just a general comment, and so.
Yeah, thank you. Me and Jen the past 2-3 weeks have been trying to tackle this, and we finally got it done. So I'm glad that you guys are finding it a little bit better.
I second everything that Rory said. On 5031, I just have a question / comment, and it might be incorporated and I missed it. But so they list out this big redundant set of values: shellfish, wildlife, habitat, agriculture, which I think all that is sort of encompassed in number 2. But then it also calls out historic, which I thought was interesting. And I'm wondering if that ought to be incorporated into 2.
The thing is, with historic, it wasn't specifically stated in our bylaw. So that's why I decided to take it out. However, I'm not sure, since it isn't in our bylaw, if it's even supposed to be in our regulations, but
that's fair.
If there is a way that historic should be in our regulations, I would add that back in if that's a possibility. Yeah, it might be. I think it might be, but I'm not sure.
Well, I think realistically too, it's dealt with when we have public benefit analysis also. But
yeah,
just raising a point.
So do we know that if something isn't in the bylaw, whether we can include it in the regulation?
We don't. We're sort of doing the simplified version, and then we know we're going to go to town council and say, can we really do this? Or, this wasn't in the bylaw. Is this something we can keep, or do we need to take that out? So we know we're going to go back to town council to review this version. And this version is just the simplification. We're not trying to make content changes.
Yep.
Certainly, if you notice anything like that, then we should put a little note to it so we make sure we check it.
Right. And I think I have a couple comments later on that where maybe something you didn't comment on, but I think that I do, as much as we as a town have a high value to the historic value of things. I find it challenging to justify putting it into our regulations.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think also, if you're dealing with a historic site, it likely and there's wetland issues, it likely has pre-existing non-conforming status, right? And so you have previously disturbed areas and things like that exist that we are dealing with. It was just more an observation and a point, and I wanted to make sure we weren't changing something without thinking about it.
Maybe that's the reason, and this is a good conversation. Maybe that's a reason to try and keep it in there.
Yeah.
And maybe that is something that, maybe it was an old mill site or something that, now we would want it restored to the state it was, or we want to allow them to keep it in whatever status they was, as far as stonework or something like that we wouldn't approve today.
Yeah.
Maybe that's right. So I agree, and I appreciate the comment actually, that maybe that's the reason why we keep it in.
If we can.
If we can.
Okay.
If we can.
I made a little little note on that, so definitely something I will look at and see if Jen or me can talk to town council about that.
Yeah, and everything else, not to stay here, but like everything else on that list, I felt like was really well encompassed in the handful of words that are too. I don't think we need to call out each species of animal that lives in these zones.
Yeah, I agree. So are we all in favor for keeping 5031B for the new edit
Yes.
right here?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes, please.
Okay.
When I started reading it, I said, "Oh, this is going to be good." I like this.
So I'm just accepting the edit to know that you guys approve. And then we're going to move on.
Well, do you want to leave that deletion for town council? I think it's an easy way to review it.
We actually have a copy of this version.
Perfect.
Completely.
Perfect.
So yeah. So I don't think I can get all of D in there. So let's just review C right now. So if you want to read it and let me know.
Yeah, I'm good with keeping the stuff in that we're not sure if we can keep in. You know, if we can try to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, you have notes there.
yeah, there's comments not stated in bylaw and stuff like that. So, but yeah, we kept them in because we didn't want to change the content, but we're not sure if we are supposed to be keeping them in.
Yep.
So you want me to accept that?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to D, and I think this is all I can show of D for now. So
great deletion. Great deletion.
yeah.
Please accept.
Accept.
You know, it's funny. I'm looking at an old version of the regs before they were republished online, and I don't see any end notes here either. Just so you know.
You don't see any what?
End notes.
Yeah.
Like this stuff has all sorts of end notes in them that I don't know where.
We could not find any of them.
I know I was actually going to go look to see if I had an even older version. Because, see, I still use the paper copy, so all tabbed and everything else.
So do I.
If we're showing off our binders, you know.
So I don't, and I know this isn't the most recent version. So.
Okay, so now we're on 503-2, jurisdiction and exemptions. So here is A.
Yeah, I think the reference to the River Protection Act. Yeah, I think you're good to delete that.
Yeah, we also had some question maybe for town council, whether or not that needs to be stated, but when I was looking at other bylaws, they didn't seem to reference back to the Rivers Protection Act. So
I think it's also thoroughly incorporated into the Wetland Protection Act.
yeah. So what about A and B?
in one, you may want to bring the spacing up around so that there's not a blank space in line 2.
Awesome.
Perfect. Thank you.
So there was a question here that the WPA includes rare species habitat and wildlife habitat, and you're asking, do we include them here? Is that right?
Yeah. So rare species habitat isn't really mentioned in our bylaws. It's obviously mentioned a lot in the Wetlands Protection Act. So I'm just assuming at this point that we just incorporate, we just go off of the Wetlands Protection Act, and we don't have any more stringent ways to regulate rare species. So I'm guessing that's why it's not stated. So yeah, I did have a question on whether or not
Definitely a question for town council. So Wetland Protection Act does not have rare species habitat as a resource area. It does have a section that says if any project is within a rare species habitat, it has to be reviewed by Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program, and the commission cannot issue an order of conditions until Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program has provided comments or more than 30 days have lapsed. So there's requirements under Wetland Protection Act for rare species, but it's not technically a resource area. So we didn't include it in that section because it says a resource area. And then if it's not listed in our bylaw, then can we include it? Kat says no. Can we include it in the regulations? And that's a question for town council.
I mean, just as a point of information, I prefer to keep it if we can. So.
I would agree.
Yeah, I think rare species habitat is extremely important to be protected. So yeah, I'll make a note of that so we can ask town council how and if we can incorporate that in our regulations. So would you want me to accept A and B or just leave it as is for now?
Well, I think leave it as is just so that it's more specifically called out.
All right, awesome. There's all these crazy gaps in the regulations too, because I think when they were originally formatted, they did page breaks, and I haven't been able to figure out how to get rid of those page breaks. So sorry for the extra giant gaps. So this is also what was deleted. We just kind of condensed it and put it in a list, which you saw above. And here is, oops, a little too far. Here's 2.
The extra words are just amazing. Like it always fascinates me how much like deleting can improve content.
I agree.
And just for Michelle's sanity, you don't have to keep track of all of this. For the minutes, I'll give you a good idea of what to write tomorrow. So don't think you have to take notes on all of these things. So Wetland Protection Act and other bylaws do tend to say as specified in the aforementioned section that'll be a question for town council, whether or not we need to keep that in there, but the bulk of it, I think, can go.
Do we need B?
See, subject to regulation.
I can see how it reflects off of A lot.
But Jenny, your point is just subject to regulation. Redundant. Yeah.
It's subject to, it's an activity within
Yeah.
a resource area. So it needs a permit, whether you don't need to call out septics specifically.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you. I am good with all these changes.
You're good with all these changes?
Anybody have comments?
Yeah.
It looks like you're good to accept.
Awesome.
In 2, it looks like there's a stray period, and 2A at the end after the, yeah, you got it. Thank you.
Awesome. Some of this was just changing it to capitals because since it's the name of something like a permit, so.
Lauren, I think you can highlight and accept all in the highlighted area too, if that's helpful.
That is helpful, thank you. When it's, I might have to go back tomorrow during work and just fix up some spacing and stuff too. I'm just gonna move on to B. I don't think we changed that much in exemptions. So it looks like nothing here has been changed. I do have a couple comments. A lot of it's there's another section. Oh, it was talking about I think a lot of my comments were about how there's another section for, we'll see it when we get there, but there's another section of it was not exemptions, but exceptions. And it talked about emergency projects. But I think we just changed that to emergency projects as its own section. So.
These exemptions are what we made.
Yeah. So we didn't change anything there. So we're moving on.
Lauren doesn't like using word trash and rubbish in the same line.
I didn't. Because they mean the same thing, but I do like it.
Okay. You know, it's interesting, and it's sort of this weird thing about trash and garbage, right? That I mean, I was never brought up them being different things, but here in Massachusetts, they're different things.
All right, now explain what's the difference.
So trash is like paper products and all that other stuff. Garbage is like food waste.
They do that in Vermont too, because some people burn their trash or their rubbish, and it's waste. You have to say one or the other.
You used to have a different person cup for your trash versus your garbage. You used to have a garbage pail in the back that you throw all your scraps in, and then the guy would come and take your garbage. So I use them interchangeably still. So
same, yeah.
I just use recycling.
Well, we got a lot of that too.
I use my chickens, so they're gonna.
Okay, so now we are at 503-3 and if you want to read and let me know what you guys think.
Forget about the up to here note. That was just so we could keep track of where we were from day to day.
Should have deleted that.
So why delete the preponderance of evidence? Which is number 2.
Number 2.
Lower 2, the other one. Yep. Is it just stated somewhere else?
I'm not sure why that was deleted. I wonder if we just forgot to add that in or if it was deleted by mistake, but
is it in the definition?
Yeah, it's in the opening statement.
Okay. No, and I think that's what a lot of this is. That I just want to make sure we're not deleting.
Yeah, I mean, the first line is the applicant shall have the burden of proving by a preponderance of credible evidence that, and then.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. So that's probably why.
Oh, and what you're seeing below 2, 3, they list each type of permit, and then they say virtually the same thing over and over again. So we just said it for all permits and then took out all the other little ones. We might have to scroll up or down, depending on which way you look at it, for you to see the rest of that.
That makes sense.
Yeah. For waiver, we just said comply with waiver section because they said the same thing. That's under waiver section.
So we're not sure if we need to move waivers to this area in the regs, or if we take it out of there and say there's already a waiver section. It's listed twice and slightly different wording both times. So
that's been the worst part of this, right? I mean,
yeah,
the language is different. I think you should definitely just, if we can, just say comply with waiver section 503-22 or whatever.
Okay.
I'm in agreement with that.
Awesome. So I'm going to accept all of this, if that's all right with all of you. Yes?
Yes.
Awesome. I'm sorry. Oopsies.
And the waiver for rare species habitat, that's still a question mark for us.
Yeah.
Why is that a question mark?
We just don't know if we can regulate it because it's not specifically written in the bylaw. So that's just a town council question.
So
that's really the content for later on.
This is a relatively new section, just to give you perspective.
Okay.
Prior to this change, you could not have a waiver for a rare species habitat. So, so that was something that was specifically added in here.
Yeah.
Like it used to say you could not have a waiver for a rare species habitat. And I know that's why we changed it, you know. And so at least we put,
yeah.
Huh?
I'm not saying there shouldn't be a waiver. It's just whether we can regulate rare species habitat. So it's sort of tied together to all rare species habitat question to town council, but this is the simplified version, not the content version.
Yeah, I'm just, there's a statement that gets deleted out of here.
Okay.
And so I just want to be careful that to give context to why it was there. It was because we didn't want this to be a cursory review of the rare species habitat and the natural heritage and everything. And I'm not suggesting anybody on this commission would do that. The intent was to make it like literally we went from not having a waiver.
Yeah.
You couldn't do it. Like there's 3 projects now in town, like Owl Ridge couldn't have been done without this waiver. 300 Foundry, the multifamily or the multi-plan building there. Whatever. that couldn't have been done either. So there were 2 or 3 projects in the last couple of years that have been done because this waiver requirement was in here. I'm saying the regulations said it before, they couldn't even have a waiver. There were rare species, you can't do it.
Thank you, Rory.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm cautious about removing that sentence. We may
The
want
commission shall be diligent.
Yeah, that sentence there. Now, it may be redundant. I'm just giving you the context, the context of why it's redundant.
Yeah. When I was discussing like taking that out with Jen, there's a couple sections in here where it says the commission shall be diligent in its review of the proposed activity. And what I was thinking at the time was for all activities, I feel like the commission should be diligent in its review.
I agree with you 100%.
But if there were issues in the past, I agree. Maybe that should be kept.
Maybe it's time to get rid of it too. So you know, what I mean, I'm just giving you context. When we get to content, we can have the context part of it.
Yeah, leave it all for now.
Yeah, I'll leave it for now.
Definitions.
For definitions, we didn't fully really go through. We stopped like a couple in. We highlighted some where we had questions like the 300 feet of abutters. We're going to see if we can change that for specific projects. Yeah, I think for the definitions, we probably shouldn't go through right now, right?
We should skip those because we didn't actually go over them together, Lauren.
Yeah, exactly. And some of the definitions a while back, when I first started looking at the regulations, they're still in their red line, but I deleted because they were already in either the Wetlands Protection Act or our bylaw. So yeah, we have a lot of definitions. Okay, so computation of time periods. We basically just said consistent with the WPA with this and deleted everything else. We would obviously word that different when it comes time to actually. But are we all okay with accepting this change?
Yes.
Yes.
And can we link that to the WPA?
We can put the citation number. Yeah. It's exactly the same as Wetland Protection Act. That's no difference. So.
Remind me. I'll send you court rules because there's one where it's just linked through in a way that's amazing. Sorry, neither here nor there.
So you heard them coming out. It might be a possibility to actually link it in there for like online versions of the regs.
Yeah, so like the Mass Superior Court rules, if you click it'll say same as X. If you click X, it brings you not only to the source, but to the exact point in the source that they're talking about.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So it just saves the user a few steps. It's nice.
Yeah, that sounds nice. For actions by the Conservation Commission, that's also consistent with the WPA. Good with accepting that.
Yep.
Awesome.
It might be something council says, hey, you really should keep, but it's exactly the same language.
Yeah. 5037, all the information that was there previously is still there, but we basically reworded the entire thing, and we changed it to permitting procedures, just to make it a lot shorter. So I'll show you A, and A1 and A2. And if,
So I reviewed these prior and I thought this made it much more user friendly. Like to the,
Awesome.
if you were a layperson picking this up, I think this is now pretty understandable.
awesome. Is everyone all right with me accepting these changes? I can move down to now. Wasn't sure if you were all done reading. I'm sorry. I think some of the numbering got mixed up, but I can fix that. Fix formatting sometime this week.
Perfect. I'm good here. I don't know if anyone's actively reading, please let's jump in and say what you need.
You're muted, Rory.
I've already reviewed it all. I'm good with it.
You're good with this section? Does anybody oppose this entire section or parts of it?
I really thought this section was phenomenal. Like I thought this was a much more usable thing.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so I'm just going to accept it all if that's okay. Does anybody want to see what was deleted? No? Okay.
No, thank you.
Just trying to go.
Are we doing more than just A, Lauren? Everybody's good with B, butters, C, application completion, issuing the file. I just want to make sure we were clear on which sections we were doing. Public hearing.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's good with all of that? Or we didn't get there yet?
Are we all set with, I'm just going to word that differently. Are we all set with 503-7?
Yes, I am.
The entire section. Awesome. I just want to make sure I don't go too far. It's all these gaps. Okay, that's it. Accept change. Did it not accept?
Seems like we lost it.
Oh, that's 508. Okay, yeah, it did accept.
Okay.
I don't know why it got so big. Okay. 508. 508 was stated in the above section, and I think that's why that's deleted, because we did talk about permit for work in the above section. So if you're all okay with me deleting
yes,
the entirety of 5038. No, I went too far. Okay, now we are at 5039. I think the only change we made to this section was just changing it to emergency certificate. Yeah. So if we only talk about emergency projects in this section, so if you're all okay with us changing it from exception to application, exceptions to application for permit for work to emergency certificates. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes. So, here we are in enforcement. We didn't really change anything in this section. I don't think we found a way that could be really simplified. But if you have any comments, feel free to speak up. Same with servability and compliance with court decisions. We did not do anything. And 5.3 is reserved. So are we all set with, I think that's it for Article 1.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Would we like to move on to Article 2?
I'm on the fence. What do we want to save Article 2 for the next meeting, or do we want to keep going?
Yeah, I think I'd like to defer.
Yeah. I think, Jen, it looks like we have a lighter meeting next week. If not next week, but back in August anyway. So maybe it'll be a better use. You're on mute.
Thanks. I don't think we have any new projects for the next meeting.
Yeah. So
we might have a COC new or something like that, but not any new projects.
So let's plan on finishing this at the next meeting.
All right,
Would
awesome.
we see a draft of what we've worked over so far?
Yes.
And, you know, get it as close as you can to, let's say, ready for publishing. So then if we can find any, you know, really read it hard at the next stage.
Yeah.
This is the fun and glamorous work.
You know, I work in regulations every day, all day, and so I know how hard this is. So I do appreciate the efforts of Jennifer and Lauren on this, and I do appreciate it. And, you're undertaking some very valuable work to us, and we've literally talked about this my entire time at the commission. To see it actually happening is quite rewarding. So I appreciate it, Lauren. And I don't know if Lauren or Jennifer sort of expected that when Lauren joined us at the beginning of the summer that we'd be able to accomplish what we did. And I know I was in the office one day, and Jennifer and Lauren, they don't just sit in the office and do this; they go out and do field work too. So, both of them, I could see were just, you know, smiles on their faces that they were going to go out and do work and learn things and teach things. And I hope this has been a great experience for both of you, because it's been great watching it. So.
Thank you. Yes, this has been an amazing experience for me. I've been learning so much, not just with the regulations, but and like the act and stuff, but just like even going out in the field and learning about how to delineate a wetland. And Jen likes to quiz me and be like, what tree is that? What vine is that?
He's doing wonderfully.
Which is great because it's something that I will need to know going into a career. And so that's been absolutely amazing that I've gotten this opportunity. And Jen has been amazing with showing me the ropes and teaching me new things on the weekly. So thank you.
Yeah, she's done a wonderful job too. Really.
Great.
Very happy she came to us this summer, and yeah, she's gonna be great.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think that brings us to the end of the meeting. Last motion to adjourn.
Second.
Carol with the motion, Spadia second. Roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Rossman, aye.
Callfield's aye.
Spady, aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Night, folks.